This episode is brought to you by the Denver Art Museum's summer exhibition, Desert Rider: Dreaming in Motion. Desert Rider explores the intersections of Indigenous, Latinx, and Chicano lowrider and skateboard culture in the American Southwest. Discover large-scale installations, photographs, and more by artists like Carlos Fresquez, Naniba Chacon, Justin Favela, and more. You can even create your own mini paper car that you can cruise down a miniature model of Federal Boulevard. The exhibition is on display now through September 24th. Learn more about Desert Rider: Dreaming in Motion at denverartmuseum.org. Today on CityCast Denver, we've got a brand new mayor entering office on Monday, and according to Westward editor and founder Patty Calhoun, that means it's his job to get Denver's mojo back. So me and producer Paul Caroli are sitting down with Patty to talk through some of her best ideas for Mayor Mike, from tackling downtown's hellhole problem to that dang empty lot at Colfax and Broadway. How are you going to fix that, Mike? For real. Today is Wednesday, July 12th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Patty Calhoun, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
It's my pleasure.
It's been a while. We're glad to
has.
see you. We're here in the Westward offices again, just for fun, hanging out. Paul, you're here as well.
Hey, Bree.
Hey.
Love being back.
Yeah, I do too. Nice energy in here. We get to see some of our old friends. But we're talking about Mike Johnston because he's going to be inaugurated on Monday. He's the first new mayor we've had in 12 years. And that means it's his job, as you've put it, Patty, to help Denver get its mojo back. But let's start with that. Like, what do you think is wrong with us now? How did we lose what we had?
It's so interesting because we did this whole feature last year on how Denver lost its mojo and what we needed to do to get it back. Part of it was the pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
Who got mojo at all during the pandemic? But also by July 2022, you were like, we are tired of Michael Johnston. We've had the same mayor for a long time.
Oh, Mike, you're tired of Michael Hancock?
Michael Hancock.
Hey, that's not going to be the first time someone does that.
I've typed it about 4 times.
We're tired.
So we'd had the same mayor for 12 years. We hadn't seen a lot of him during the pandemic. And that was one of my concerns a year ago was there was the whole narrative, Denver in decay, don't go downtown. Whereas if you went downtown, clubs were hopping, restaurants were doing well. The Golden Triangle, where we are, the museums are packed. So I thought, why isn't Michael Hancock, then the mayor, still the mayor till Monday, why isn't he out there every night or afternoon tweeting, here's a live thing, where they are? So that's one of my recommendations right now, to show people it is not scary to go downtown. If you were downtown yesterday, you saw the whole Viva Streets where people were, and the most successful
On
partly
Sunday,
because
yeah.
it didn't, because it didn't rain.
Yeah.
But you had people all over downtown again. You can go there. But in July 2022, there was really a strong feeling that you just couldn't go downtown. It was scary. And anyone who was downtown knew that wasn't really the case unless you were in certain blocks that were always scary.
Well, and I just want to clarify, like, what we're talking about here is mojo's like the feeling in the city that it's cool to be here, that we like to be here, that we like ourselves, that we like being Denver.
That we're high on Denver. And Denver always enjoyed a really great reputation around the country. And we've kind of lost that. We'd lost it a year ago. Part of affordability, part of just people talking about the homelessness issue when every city has that. But even though people were still moving here, it wasn't like during the recession when we were the number one place for millennials to go, because that was like, if I'm going to be poor, I'm going to be poor in Denver where I can do creative things. Now the people who have moved here, because you could work remotely, it's like, I don't have to go out. I can go to the mountains and I can afford it because I'm working remotely as an IT person.
Totally.
So It's a different group of people moving here.
But it's also just like this. So we're going to be talking now about what our new mayor, Mike Johnston, can do to help change that narrative. Right?
Yeah, and these are super fun ideas. I mean, Patty, these are let's get into them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a few of them. I'll pull one off. This was maybe the one I was most excited about, Patty. You want to give meaning to the Mayor's Award for Arts and name one after Joyce Meskis.
You know, this just came to me a while ago. If you look at the Mayor's Award for the Arts, it is almost always the Hall of Fame. It's people who've been doing things for a very long time. But I was thinking about an unsung hero of Denver, especially right now, when you think about where we're not as strong as we were a year ago. First Amendment free speech issues, given the 303 creative decision, a Colorado case went to the U.S. Supreme Court. We should push what a sanctuary we are for free speech. And no one pushed it more than Joyce Meskis.
She was the longtime owner of Tattered Cover,
which
free speech champion.
Right. Nationally. I mean, she went to the mat. She refused to give up her customers' reading records, the books they bought. I mean, the cops came to her and she said no, and she deserves to be championed more. Another thing on that line, I thought maybe we also need to bring back to literally get all of Denver on the same page, one book, one city. That was a great project when it was going. You recommend a book people should read, and it just kind of died. Hickenlooper had it going.
So Hickenlooper was recommending a book and people would all read it?
Yeah, and it was 10 years ago. And we actually even had one, Bill Owens recommended a one state, one book, but it just kind of went by the wayside, partly because it's not easy to choose one.
But it's getting everybody to read the same
book.
Which helps conversations about where we are.
Right, exactly. And especially they're good Colorado authors. They're good books about Colorado.
Well, before we leave the books and Joyce Meskis, there's been a development at Tattered Cover that is kind of connected to this I want to hear your take on. And that's they hired a new CEO who's taking the job after Kwame Spearman left it to run for mayor, and he's not going back to Tattered. So now they hired this new Republican lawyer who's, I guess, a free speech advocate in his own right. So they kind of swung back to the Joyce Meskis style of, I don't know, what do you think?
I'm very optimistic about it. Now, I have to say, I met Dempsey, who the new CEO, drinking with Kwame Spearman at the Denver Press Club.
Really?
So first of all, that he would be at the Denver Press Club. He's a Golden-based attorney. But that he was there showed, he cares about press, cares about media. He's also an expert in doing some turnaround and some bankruptcy issues. So I think it'll be great, because he knows it's a treasure. It's a Colorado treasure. I would have put that on Mike Johnston to do something with Tattered Cover to make sure it survives, but I think they can take care of themselves for now.
Interesting. Oh, you got me optimistic about it. I love that. Bree, you want to take one?
I think the arts, you've kind of already touched on it, but we have a great art scene. Patty, you know this from covering it for decades. I know it through in and out, and Meow Wolf has come here, which gave us a lot of clout on the national stage. But even before that, we've been at the forefront of all different, from theater to music to, our immersive experiences, also just our more traditional arts museums. And I have to say, I think this is something that I think our mayor can champion even more. And I'm optimistic about it because I was over the weekend at the Desert Rider Dreaming in Motion exhibit at the Dam, and I ran into none other than Mayor-elect Mike Johnston, and he was there in a "Be a Good Person" shirt, and he had
rules.
Yeah, he tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, nice shirt." I had the Denver Made shirt on, and he had just bought a Denver Made hat, which is a great brand out of here. We just had a really quick conversation. He was just really excited about the arts in general. And I said, the Nightmare idea is great. And he said, oh, I just met with Stephen Brackett. And I said, you should talk to Santi Jaramillo in Westwood about D3 arts if you're looking for these different areas where we can push the arts. And he was talking about how much he just loves our murals and he wants to see them on every block. And I don't know. I think it means something when you see somebody in a space like that.
Right, because he's not running. He is elected. He doesn't have to win the vote. And when I talked about the mayor going out every night or every day to a place, it doesn't have to be a downtown restaurant. I mean, you could be at a museum. That event was great.
It was great.
You
and
need
it was cool
to get out
there.
and show people there are wonderful things. And that was really a hit. That show was great, but just that they did the lowrider show.
Yeah.
Outside
the fact that
during the day.
Our new mayor to be hanging out. Again, he was alone. He wasn't like with a big group of people. He was just enjoying the exhibit. So I don't know. I think I have a lot of optimism for support of the arts in a more community-centered way.
Bree, you mentioned the Nightmare idea and Stephen Brackett. Patty, that's on your list too, this Nightmare thing. We should talk about that more. I don't know if people really are familiar with what that would entail.
They will be soon, I think, because in fact, Stephen Brackett is doing a mixed taste at the holiday for the MSCA next week. But the Nightmare concept came up a lot. It started getting pushed after the shootings in July, just a year ago, right on Larimer Street. And part of it is who do you go to? Remember the response was, let's ban the food carts, which hardly seemed like a constructive thing. We in our Mojo package last year had suggested, and it's been talked about for decades, rolling let out, which is let some bars stay open later so not everyone comes out at 2 a.m. and congregates in parking lots, because that's when the trouble happens. Have some open till 4, have some open till 5, have people, it's a rolling let out. They didn't take our advice on that. I know it's been looked into before. Polis has been interested. But the night mayor would be a person who watches the nighttime economy of Denver. So it wouldn't just be the clubs downtown. It would be anything that say open after 6. So when things happen, you have an office you can call. And when you have someone maybe who's having problems with parking or towing or, heaven forbid, another shooting, that person would get involved early, that office, in figuring out, is there a solution? Is there a fix? And making sure the right message is going out and that they are not just banning food trucks.
So this would be like a city office, like Johnston could appoint someone like Brackett to be the night mayor. And
right.
It would be
exactly.
his job.
It would be a mayoral appointee, whether it's on its own, whether it's under safety, whether it's under excise and licenses. It would really be up to him. There are at least 15 cities around the country that have this, including New Orleans. And the guy there who does it is from here. So we interviewed him for a cover story back in June, because it just seems at the very least we have to acknowledge how important our nighttime economy is, and the arts and the theater and the restaurants and the places you can go that make Denver really special. And just make sure those people are getting some attention and answers from the people they need.
Well, Patty, I have to ask you about permitting. Permitting, I know you've been dealing with personally, but I actually don't understand what the problem is with the permitting office. I've just heard people talk about it a lot.
Well, what we've heard is how long it takes to get permitted for so many different things. I mean, any construction project, you need to get permitted. And it's not just maybe by one office, it's other offices. Like you can have water, you can have fire, if you're building a building. So we've heard complaints for decades about permitting, and sometimes it gets better and sometimes it gets worse. But we've never heard of it being as bad as it is right now. Both Mike Johnston and Kelly Brough talked about it. It was a major issue during their campaigns. Now, do we care about permitting getting better so we can build more huge monolithic apartment buildings? Or do we care because people are trying to build maybe their accessory dwelling unit or fix something on their historic home, like the roof that just collapsed, and you can't get a permit? So on top of it, it's slow. That's an issue. Mm-hmm. But then maybe there's some issues with competency. So I'm referring to the Park Hill Golf Course fence issue.
Okay.
Kyle Harris, who used to work at Westward, who writes for Denver right now, he had done a story about how the Park Hill owners of the Park Hill Golf Course were in violation and had been cited by the city because they didn't have a fence permit. This is last week. Turns out they had a fence permit. It was from Parks and Rec, and it had just been misfiled in the city.
Oh, no.
So Kyle had to rewrite the story. It wasn't his fault.
And that's got to be like the biggest permitting issue you don't want to have is with the Park Hill Golf Course.
Like there's enough controversy over it without getting it wrong.
Yeah, listeners, I mean, if someone's coming to this story new, it's a 100-year-old controversy, really. But I think the most recent development that's worth mentioning is that Denver voters just recently said no to the developers' plans to build mixed-use housing and parkland on this site.
Well, and lift, yes.
Right.
And so it's currently
Lift
just an abandoned golf course.
Well, and the developers are putting up fences around it.
Which means folks that live around it can't just... They've been using it kind of as a makeshift park because it had been abandoned.
Right.
Basically.
They'd been using it for years while the whole debate over what was going to happen to the property went on. But now the developers are putting up fences. They're talking about liability, whatever. Maybe it's sour grapes too. But the fact is, those fences were legally permitted. The city just lost them.
So, Mayor Mike, can
oh
you
my
just...
gosh.
buy the Park Hill Golf Course back from Westside and make it a park?
He's talked about it. The big issue will be what you would have to pay to get it.
That's what I'm curious about. How do you price it? Because like the community is like so pushing back on the plans that were presented, and everyone has kind of a different idea. And now anything that is proposed would have to be voted on by the whole city. So like, what is it worth? I honestly have no idea what offer that Mike Johnston could make what the dollar amount is.
Right, because they paid $24 million.
Yeah.
The current owners,
which was a sweetheart deal.
Yeah, which especially
That
for
was
what they had
one
proposed
of the biggest
building,
issues, right?
People were suspicious of what the city was giving away for that
Right.
amount. But now, do we want to pay $24 million for that now? That's the question. So it's
My
going to be
idea was
tough.
to put Elitch's there, but then Paul pointed out nobody's really going to want to be next to a roller coaster. So
I am.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Are
are.
you a roller
I'm
coaster
next to
person?
roller.
She lives
No,
right
I'm
by
next to. I
Elitch
live right
Gardens.
over Elitch Gardens.
Okay. Cool.
It's very nice.
Just a thought.
Well, or Top Golf. You never know what's going to be there.
Yeah, Top Golf.
Those are
All
bigger
right.
fences. They're going to have to get more rules on that.
This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. Hey Denver, are you tired of driving and paying for gas? Well, you're in luck. RTD and several other regional transit options are free both July and August this summer. You don't need to sign up. You won't need a ticket. You can just get on a train, get on a bus, and you're good to go. Now that is a breath of fresh air, literally, because the Front Range's biggest air quality problem is actually invisible. Created from pollutants like car exhaust that react in sunlight, ground-level ozone is a leading cause of respiratory problems. So taking the bus or light rail and biking or walking instead of driving just a couple days each week can make a big difference in our region's air quality. If you've been considering testing out a new commute or way to get around the city using the light rail or bus, July and August are the perfect time to do that. It's totally free, and you don't even need to sign up, and it improves our air quality. Learn more about how to help improve our region's air quality by visiting simplestepsbetterair.org. This episode is brought to you by the Colorado Wine Board. If you thought Colorado was just for beer lovers, think again. The Centennial State is home to over 165 wineries, which makes it easy to find a local label you love. Find urban wineries all over Denver, like Deep Roots Winery and Bistro, Carboy, Kingman Estates, and more. Plus, you can explore wineries across the Front Range and Western Slope. From Durango to Holyoke, you can make regional wine tasting a whole summer adventure. Colorado wineries have events all year long, featuring live music, tastings, special performances, and even grape stomping. Wherever your Colorado adventure takes you, you can certainly find a complex Cabernet or sparkling white to accompany you. The Colorado Wine Board offers a detailed map of all your favorite wineries, plus a calendar of can't-miss events and more. Discover your perfect wine and support local winemakers at coloradowine.com.
Bree, it's your turn. What do you want to talk about next?
Maybe safety. I mean, what a giant term that means so many subjective. It's subjective to every degree, but I think one thing that Mike Johnston talked about, I think all of the candidates did pretty much, was the expansion of the STAR program. I'm really looking for that. If that could be immediately implemented in some way to take the burden off the police department, which we already know is under, they need to hire a ton, right? Well, maybe we put some of that towards expanding the STAR program, because in my neighborhood in the west side of Denver, you can't call STAR. And I was talking to some friends about it the other day. They're like, we have a pretty regular unhoused woman that hangs out in our alley, and we have conversations with her and stuff. And there was a point where she was like, can you call the police for me? And they were like, could we call STAR instead? And so if Mike was able to just get on that immediately, I feel like that would be an easy win.
I also think faster time, and I don't know how you do this that quickly, but you need to. 911's time. Can't remember which TV station just did a study.
So scary.
911 time is very slow. And those can be life-threatening issues. And if 911 is slow, 311, whereas a lot of the 911 calls should probably go, those are really slow. So it's how citizens can really figure out who they need to talk in a fairly reasonable time frame. And of course, with 911, reasonable is quick when you really need it. So expansion of STAR is great. We have the AIDS Center that started, which is also kind of a STAR-like program, which is kind of one-stop shopping for people who are suffering homelessness or other issues. So expand the programs that don't require trained police officers, and maybe let trained police officers stop some of the speeders on Colorado Boulevard and the places where we have drag racing going on.
Can I ask you, Patty? So this is so anecdotal to me, but like I live near a busy intersection that is frequented. Alameda and Federal are both strips for speeding and racing, drag racing. And is this a new problem or has this been a build-up problem? But like I feel like I can't go anywhere in the city where people aren't speeding like crazy.
I think it's built up during the pandemic. That's anecdotal, but from driving around, it's true. And I-25, I mean, I would have to look over what is the responsibility of the highway patrol, state patrol. Right. What is the responsibility of the city? But there's no question that you have speeders, and not just speeders, but probably intentional drag racing speeding. I see that a lot more than I used to. But on Colorado Boulevard, on Federal, I'm seeing it too. And
I was like, just start clocking all those people, ticket them, and use that money to enhance the pedestrian infrastructure around the
right, or hire some people to answer 911 when the calls come in. So, but I do think we've fallen down on ticketing on things like that. It used to be you could tell when people had their quotas because you'd be going 1 mile an hour over on Spear and you'd get pulled over. I haven't seen anyone get pulled over in a long time.
Well, we talked about infrastructure a bit there. Patty, I know you got some ideas on that topic. Maybe we could talk about the Colfax and Broadway lot. I'm not actually familiar with that. What is that?
It gets into image too. You will think about it as soon as you're driving down Broadway, about to hit Civic Center, and on your left, so there's the Civic Center, the station, and then right there is a fenced off Garden of Rocks. It's a big Garden of Rocks. Oh, yeah. And when RTD redid Civic Center Station, they didn't get this part. So here you are at the center of the Golden Triangle, right opposite the Capitol.
And
Kitty corner.
Like
it looks horrible. Garbage. The problem is not, and you do have a lot of homeless people.
You're so right.
But people suffering homelessness, sign flyers, you find a lot of them there, but maybe that's because there isn't anything else there. But how about there's talk of building a museum of Denver, a Denver museum, because we don't have one,
that's
and many other cities do. There's big talk of putting museums there, building something, but really make the Civic Center area great by getting rid of that and putting some real function on it.
I'd love to just see a giant public restroom there personally.
Or even a park, or a public,
something.
A garden where you can grow things and, you can fence things off because they've got new dog parks that are fenced off.
True.
But that is just an embarrassment.
It is really gross.
And when you talk about images, that's one that would be wonderful right by City Hall to fix.
All right. Well, there you go, Mr. Johnston. That's what we're looking for, something to spruce up that lot.
And I'm not sure who owns it. I probably should fact check that. But he's the mayor soon. He can find out.
He'll know.
Bree, how about you? Let's do one more.
Well, I'll bring up one, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been talking to a lot of people over the last year, really, about this with the whole Mojo issue. And one friend has always wanted to push the Mile High Mile, so a citizens run along the 16th Street Mall, which when it started was exactly a mile. Now it's a little longer. But as a welcome back, assuming God willing, the mall construction is ever finished, have a citizens race along the mall.
Like a running race?
Well, yeah, but you're just running, you're sprinting. And other cities,
I'm not sprinting up and down the 16th Street Mall.
Well, when it's reopened,
when it's done, it might look amazing.
It might look great
because I think they're going to level it all out.
Parties on both sides. Why not?
I do think the 16th Street Mall needs some fresh ideas, but I always go back to what Leslie Herod proposed during the campaign when she was running for mayor. She had this idea to turn the 16th Street Mall into something more like the airport, where the Hancock administration has gone through all these efforts to get iconic local businesses that are very successful to open small versions like franchises in the airport. Like they have a Denver Central Market there with the Pizzeria Vero. They have a Voodoo Donuts there now, although I wouldn't say that's a local business, but it is certainly successful
here. Or an
here.
independent style chain.
Or more to the point, what they do is they have the people who have a lock on the concessions at the airport franchise with those local businesses. That's how it's working. But it would be great to do that.
But they could do that on the mall. Isn't that a great idea?
And you could still run right past them during the Mile High Mile. But there's no question you need businesses that are a reason to go there.
Yeah, and we've done a little tour with Molly Martin, your food editor here at Westward, and she's introduced us to some really good restaurants on the 16th Street Mall, and it's like changed my perception, genuinely. I was like, oh,
Totally.
Like, I'm going to take my family down there to go to Sophia's, the pizza place. Because I went home and was like, oh my God, this place is so amazing. And my husband's like, let's go check it out. I don't know the last time I was like, let's willingly go to the 16th Street Mall.
Well, you have to have a destination pretty much now because you're jogging around all the different construction.
But once that's all done.
This isn't my idea. This is from the Denver subreddit, Casa Bonita East.
I mean, they honestly could have a merch store there and do fine.
They would crush. Just get that brand on there.
Just get a
that is a very good idea that I'm stealing right now.
Heck yeah.
Why not a South Park immersive experience?
Ooh,
well,
like
the
I
Immersive Museum is opening there.
Oh, that's right.
So there are things coming on the 16th Street Mall, but we should welcome it back somehow. You will not be in the race. I can see that, Paul.
No
but
way.
We are going to think about that.
Runner on this team, so
so he knows what he's talking about.
He's like, absolutely not. Should we talk about housing?
Yeah, housing. I mean, that was the biggest issue in the campaign.
Yes.
That's what a lot of people care about. People want to see a new direction here.
Housing is one of those that to say I'm going to come in the first 10 days and have a great idea. One is he obviously has to deal with the property tax issue for Denverites who have managed to keep their homes but aren't going to be able to pay that big property tax bill come December when they find out how huge it's going to be. But the other thing I'm hearing a lot about, and I think he needs to step up, is he had talked about solving homelessness, or at least getting it under control in his first term. He needs to do that, and that involves building all those tiny house areas. So he needs
20 micro communities is what he's promised.
He needs to announce a few of those and the locations early to prove they're coming, I think. And that'll take... Well, I think he needs to because people are doubting he'll be able to do that.
But also, Patty, like, how are we going to get these in more neighborhoods? Like, how much of a fight has been put up in so many neighborhoods? My neighborhood hosted one without any struggle, but I just wonder how that part's going to go.
Right. And he needs to, for a fast win, he's going to need to prove he's got one worked out.
That's true. Maybe he does. Maybe he's got one. He's just going to announce that day.
This is the thing I'm most eager to see how he handles it. Because this plan that he's laid out, it's very ambitious. He says he's got the funding for it. But where do the micro communities go is still murky. And we all know it's going to be a big fight.
Right. And so I would say that's one. If we see that he's worked out a compromise with a neighborhood you wouldn't expect early on, that'll be a big win that gets people moving along.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel good.
Maybe Park Hill Golf Course.
Hey, maybe. Maybe not. Well, that's a lot of ideas for Mayor-elect Mike Johnston. Like we said, he's going to be inaugurated on Monday. Good luck. Enjoy. Those are free ideas, Mr. Johnston.
Yeah, they'll be on our website on Wednesday. Well, today.
We'll link to that in the show notes. Thanks so much, Patty.
Yeah,
thanks,
Patty. With Mike Johnston's inauguration coming up on Monday morning, we're definitely going to be talking about this more. So what do you think Mayor Mike should do first? Is there an empty lot in your neighborhood where you think he should build a micro-community or maybe a roller coaster? Leave us a voicemail with your name and neighborhood, and you might hear it on the show. The Mayor Mike hotline is 720-500-5418. Again, you can reach us at 720-500-5418.
And here's what else Denver's talking about. After Bree and I talked on Tuesday's show about Taylor Swift's sold-out concerts at Empower Field this weekend, we got this text from a listener. Quote, "Hey CityCast Denver, Emily here, big fan of y'all and even bigger Denver Swiftie who's incredibly blessed to have a ticket to Saturday's show. Congratulations, Emily. I love y'all and love the question, but there's absolutely no way Taylor gets dinner with John Mayer. They are famously on bad terms, and she even recently wrote a scathing song about him that came out on her newest original album, Midnights, which dropped last fall. However, Denver Swifties are very convinced that there will be some mingling between Taylor and Paramore this weekend, as the re-record that dropped last week featured Hayley Williams, and Paramore is at Ball Arena on Thursday. So maybe Taylor and Hayley will get dinner. And my prediction is McCoy's Diner, because why not? Thanks for all you do." What an incredible text, Emily. Thank you so much for writing in and for listening. I obviously have to defer to you, and I amend my question for other listeners. Where in Denver are we most likely to see Taylor getting dinner with Hayley Williams this weekend? Let us know on the Denver Era hotline. That number is 720-500-5418. Again, the Denver Era hotline is 720-500-5418. And here's some more news Swifties can use. RTD is going to be running special lines this weekend for concert goers, so watch out for extra buses and trains out there. Also, if you don't have a ticket, please don't join the party in the parking lot outside Empower Field. Stadium officials must have heard about the crowds of Swifties gathering outside the venues at other tour stops because they're laying down the law. Unless you've got a ticket, you are, quote, highly discouraged from tailgating this weekend. And finally, for the record, my favorite Taylor era is Folklore. I love the song about the house because it's reminiscent to me of one of the great Western novels, the Pulitzer-winning Angle of Repose by Wallace Stegner. I won't get into that more here, but if you know, you know.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Hayley Williams about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, by texting Denver to 66866. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye. How are you going to fix it, Mike? For real. Poor guy. We're already here to harass the new mayor, and he's not even in office yet.